Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Boss Body Podcast. This is Sarah Haas. Thank you so much, as usual, for being here with me. I'm excited today because we're talking about a topic. I know it's something that I struggle with. I know it's something that a lot of women struggle with, and it's stress. Having enough energy, having too much anxiety, feeling like we're struggling all the time, like we're stuck in survival mode. And we all need a little help to get out of that, constant cycle. And so I have Christy Whitman here with me today. She's going to teach us about her flow factor and how we can master our energy and get into that state of flow. Christy is amazing. She's a two-time New York Times bestselling author. She's been a transformational leader for the past 25 years, teaching how to manifest and create a having it all life through application of the universal laws. And she works with clients in both private and group settings and through courses to help them with their personal, mental, emotional, and energetic spiritual transformation. She uses books, seminars, meditations, and courses. She has it all. She's also written 7 books, and she has another one coming out, which I cannot wait, in September. It's called The Flow Factor. And Christie's also been awarded Woman of the Year and been in multiple movies, such as Leap, the coaching movie, and Beyond the Secret. So, Christy, it is absolutely an honor, and I am so thrilled to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me. Hi, everyone. Happy to have this discussion today.
So, Christy, I'm so excited to dive in because I'm always feeling like I'm swimming upstream, struggle mode, like balancing all the things. I struggle with depression and anxiety clinically, but I think we all struggle with that in some way, shape, or form, especially as women. We have our careers, we have our families, we have lives to lead, and we're trying to quote, have it all. And we want to also be able to be in the moment and be able to enjoy our life as it is right now. And I'm excited for you to tell us a little bit about you. Like what's your history, a little bit about your story so we can get a feel for how you're going to be able to lead us through because I know a lot of the transformations I've personally experienced have helped me hold other women's hands and support them through the same types of issues that I've struggled with. So I'm excited to hear about you and how you do that.
Oh, well, thank you. So, yeah, I was born and raised in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have parents that are Italian American and, middle class family. And I was told, I wasn't sat down and said, okay, these are the things in life that will make you happy. But what I interpreted was, okay, go to college, get a good paying job, go find a man, get married, have kids, the whole typical, like, this is what is supposed to happen and this is what you should do. And so I
Yeah.
found myself on that track, right? I went to college, I got a degree, I moved to Chicago, I had this great job. I was living in Chicago and I literally was selling wine and liquor in the city of Chicago in my early 20s and, having a blast doing it. And I met a man, asked me to get engaged or asked me to marry him. We were engaged, and I was the most miserable in that I've ever been in my entire life. Even my girlfriend that I've known since 7th grade, God bless Dawn, she was saying to me, this is supposed to be the best time of your life, and I've never seen you more miserable. And so that's when I started therapy because it was true. It was like I was really down and depressed. And I really got that, it wasn't about the external things, it was about my own connection. And I was missing that. And where I was raised, Catholic, it's like that just wasn't bringing that deep connection to me. And I even went back to the Catholic Church and went to church, and I was like, no, what I'm looking for doesn't exist within these walls. It's not here for me. And that was just a moment of like, well, what do I do then? I feel so lost. And that hunger that hunger for something deeper led me to break off my engagement. And I met a guy that worked for my company. I was working for a wine company, and we were having this romance. And I decided to ask my company to move from Chicago to the Bay Area of San Francisco. And when I did, it's like the purpose of that relationship is just to move me, because within a month after I moved there, I broke it off with him. But I did meet a woman that was a hairdresser and I needed to get my hair cut. So I went in and I was talking to Janine. Her name was Janine, and she was cutting my hair. And I noticed something about her that I had never experienced in another human being. She had this bubbly joy that I couldn't even put my finger on. It was different than someone's happy or. And finally, I just being as blunt as I am, I'm like, all right, what do you do? Right? Because I felt like I was in this movie, Harry Met Sally, where I'm like, I'll have what she's having. It's like whatever she's got going on, I want some of it. And so she told me I meditate. And I got to tell you, Sarah, at that point in my life, this is in the 90s. And this is way before the internet. Internet was just starting to come on board, but nothing like we know it to be now. And never knew anybody that meditated. And I never knew, I mean, my mind was like meditation. It was like immediately went to some guru guy with, long white hair with a beard and a white robe sitting in a yogi style oming. I mean, that was my perspective back then of who meditates. And so I'm like, my mind was just blown because I'm looking at this woman from San Ramon who was married, had a dog, she was a totally hip hairstylist. And I was like tweaked, like, what? And she said, yeah, I've learned meditation. I'll give you my meditation teacher's phone number. So back in those days, we had really big, cell phones. I remember I was like a brick walking out of the salon calling Melanie because I was like, I'm committed. I want this, right? And I met with Melanie about a week later, and I went to her home. And it was like the minute I walked into her house, she had clinky clinky new age music going on, and incense burning, and candles, and all these different, statues of angels. And I'm like, what is this? Right. And she invites me to sit down, not on a couch or a chair, but like on a little cushion in the middle of her living room, which had no furniture in it. And I sit down, and this big fat cat named Steve, I'll never forget, comes over and he's purring on me. And I'm just, kind of in this space. And she sits down and just glares like right at me, right into my eyes. And as I'm, focusing on Steve, and I'm like, oh, what is this? Steve was very comforting. And then all of a sudden, she just looks deeper into me. And I looked into her eyes and she said, you create your own reality. And something in me just went like, I do, yes.
Wow.
Like there was this
Yeah.
truth, right, that came out. Like it's like, yes. But then my
Yeah.
mind kicked in and went, how? How do I create my own reality? Right. And she could see, okay, we got a very young one here. And she said, your thoughts. You are either repelling things or attracting things to you based on the way you think. Now, again, Sarah, that was another like moment for me, the way I think, because I thought I was my thoughts. And she could see that I was really tweaked by this. So she's like, all right, here's your homework assignment. I want you to go home for a week and I want you to just pay attention to your thoughts. And I did. And it was amazing. As I walked by a mirror, I heard at least 20 different criticisms. And I was like, what's that? Like, where are those thoughts coming from? So now I was super intrigued and I found myself back with her. And I'm like, how do I get rid of these thoughts if these are not me? Like, what are these thoughts? So I started meditating, and she referred me to her friend who was a meditation teacher who actually ended up being this incredible teacher that opened up my channel for healing. And so I was doing these classes, and she was teaching me how to connect with my inner healer. And I was doing healings on other participants that were in the class, and they were like,
Wow.
oh my God, what is happening? Right. And I felt the energy, almost like this Christ energy coming through me, which scared me because I was raised Catholic. That's sacrilegious. I can't,
Yeah.
what is going on, right? So I kind of shut down that part. But because I was healing myself and because I was shifting my own thoughts, and I just started getting so hungry. I was like, anybody that I could teach me about universal laws and, how to change my reality, I was just, just eating it up, just like a sponge. And about 5 years in, my life completely changed. I went from being $60,000 in debt, 30 pounds overweight, living in a room in a woman's house, a very strange woman's house that I was renting. I had quit my job because I just couldn't stand it anymore. Here I was 5 years later. I was married to a wonderful man. It was an 8-year relationship with him. I was at my ideal body. I was making great money, totally out of debt. I mean, it was like a total flip. And at that time, all of a sudden I was meditating at night, and my first book, Perfect Pictures, literally showed itself to me in a vision. And the pages started turning, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I've never written a book, and it had my name on it. And that night, 1:05 in the morning, this voice just started, talking to me. And I was listening to it, trying to like turn it off because I wanted to sleep, but also listening to it, going, oh my God, I need to write this down. And I got up and just started writing, and my hand just like was going automatic. One
Wow.
hand was turning the pages as the other one was writing. And so I got the book published, and friends and family were thought I was off my rocker because I'm talking about energy and universal laws and things like that. And so I decided, well, I'm going to speak in spiritual bookstores and churches because that's where my actual audience is. And when I did, it was like people were asking me, do you coach? Can I hire you as a coach? And I was like, again, from a reference, coach, like a cheerleading coach, law of attraction. What are you talking? Like a football coach? And so I had people just call me on the phones, and they too were calling me back or emailing me back going, oh my God, I met him. Oh my God, I got a promotion. Oh my God, I just attracted a bunch of money. And so I loved being able to facilitate that transformation for someone. And so obviously we have a short period of time, but my involvement began where I went and became certified as a coach and started coaching people. And then I started certifying coaches. I certified over 3,000 law of attraction coaches. And we're teaching people about energy and really helping them transform their lives. And the thing that I always did was I helped people really understand energy and how thought is energy and how beliefs are energy and how to transform from what doesn't feel good to what does feel good. And starting by asking themselves 3 questions, what do I want? Why do I want it? And how do I want to feel? Because the most of us are focused on what we don't want, what we're afraid of, what we don't want to continue attracting, what we're afraid of, attracting or having or not having in our future. And so we're so focused on what we don't want. It's like pushing and resisting what we don't want. And when we ask ourselves, give ourselves permission to even ask ourselves, well, what do I want? What would please me? What would love look like? What would having it all look like in this particular area of my life? Our minds start focusing on what feels good and not what feels bad. I talk on universal laws, and one of the biggest laws that I think is the most important is the law of sufficiency and abundance. Because I like to say it's like there's 3 different buckets or 3 different states of being. One is where all the lower level, and I want to say negative because all emotions are important and they inform us. However, the lower level emotions of fear and worry and doubt and sadness and boredom and disappointment and frustration, all of that comes from lack. So anytime we're feeling or experiencing any of that, we're focused on what we don't want and we feel bad. And so by asking yourself, what do I want? That starts to bring us into a place of the second bucket, which is satisfaction, right? Which is like, this is okay. I feel okay. This is enough. I'm satisfied. I'm all right with this. And then the third bucket is abundance. So when we're in the thoughts of and have an abundant mindset, we feel good, we feel joy, we feel alive, we feel freedom, we feel passion and purpose. So when we ask ourselves, what do I want? We move out of lack and into a place where our minds are thinking about, okay, this is good. This is what would make me feel good. So we're now neutral. But the minute we then go into, all right, what do I want? Why do I want it? Now we're starting to think about, and we get our emotional body involved, that allows us to think about what greatness would be, or what, pleasure would be. And now we're shifting out of just this is okay, this is enough, into a space of thinking about, oh my God, my life would be awesome if and when. And then we get into abundance. We start feeling really good. And so, what do I want? Why do I want it? Then shifts both the mental and the emotional body. And then it brings us down to the bottom line. Anything we ever want, whether it's a man, whether it's, a better body, whether it's mental, fluidity, whether it's a best friend or success in a career, we want this thing because we think we're going to feel a certain way when we get it. So if I have a man, I'll feel loved. If I have more money, I'll feel safe and secure, right? And so the thing to understand is that all of those feelings, all of those states of being exist for us right now. We don't have to wait to get the man or the extra money or any of it, right? And when we do, it's like, why do I want this? Because I want to be at peace. Well, peace is available to us now, not when or if or then. It's here now. And really, that's what the flow factor is all about, is that all of us have that ability, that factor already exists for us to tap into and connect with passion, purpose, joy, love, freedom, whatever it is that we're looking to feel. It's now that it exists, not when or if or then, right? It's now, because our energy, we have an energy body, which is our soul. It's breathing us, it's with us all the time. It's not like, oh, I'm at the grocery store. Shoot, I don't have my soul with me. I got to go back home and get it, right? I mean, our soul's with us on vacation, at work, in the car, it's with us all the time. And that means that the energy field that exists for pure positive energy also is with us. And I like to think of it as like keys on a piano, right? There's so many different keys that have different frequency and tones. We're the piano player. We're the one that
Mhm.
need to go and choose what keys we're going to play. And more people knowing this, that, wait, I can choose joy and actually feel joy and not have to have something, some kind of condition happen in order to feel that joy. I can cultivate that right now. That's the power. That's the flow that all of us have the ability to tap into right now, right
Yeah.
this minute.
Yeah, and we don't realize that. And I want to roll back a minute to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, just to be clear that everybody listening, people are in different states of understanding these universal laws. And so I want to have you just touch on that a little bit in case someone listening doesn't really understand or hasn't heard what is the law of energy and the law of attraction. And what does that mean for us? You touched on it somewhat about, our thoughts, our beliefs about ourselves, but I think you can say it a lot better than I can.
I've been teaching it for, I mean, doing this for
Yes,
over 30 years and teaching it for at least 25. So,
which is
yeah.
amazing, by the way, because you
Oh,
are
thank you.
were way ahead of your time.
Yes, and it was like I had to just try to find information and download it and practice, and I would literally just teach what I was knowing to be true, and then what I did and what I didn't do, and help other people so that it would shorten their learning curve. So that's what I hope
Mhm.
helps for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
I like to think of the universal laws as the rules of the game, right? How successful would we be if someone you've never heard of baseball and someone says, we're going to go play baseball today, but they didn't tell you the rules. All they told you was, okay, that person on the mound is going to hit you, throw the ball at you, and you have to hit it with this bat thing. And then you hit it, and everyone's like, run. And you were like, run where? And you run to third base, right? You'd be out. Right. So it's good to know what the rules of the game. I like to say that there are 7 essential laws. I've been teaching about these. I have YouTube channel, that has all the laws broken down. but they are essential for us to understand how to make our life work, because the first law is the law of attraction. And that's what you send out comes back to you. Now, what do you mean send out? A thought has a frequency, it has energy. When you think a thought, you're going to have like energy, and what we're going to attract things to us that are of that same frequency and vibration. So, what we send out in our consciousness, well, let's break this down because this is important. Our words, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and our actions are how we send out energy. And then how we draw it back to us. I go deeper into the flow factor about each of those different aspects. But you think about it, like Melanie, my meditation teacher, started with my thoughts, right? That was a huge concept for me to get. I say we got to start with our words. There are words and phrases that we say that either put us into that flow of abundance or block the flow of abundance and put us into that lack bucket. And most of us say these words. I collected at 30 different words and created a free gift for everybody. It's a 30-day program. It's called Watch Your Words. You could go to watchyourwords.com. I highly recommend you do this because people are blown away because they're like, oh my God, I say that every day. Oh my God, I say that every day, right? And so these videos are quick, they're daily. They tell you what not to say, why, and what to say instead. So when you shift just even one word, you're shifting your whole state, which then shifts your thoughts and then your beliefs and then your emotions and then the actions that you take, which then creates a very, very different result. So starting with our words is essential because our words have energy frequencies. It said in the Bible, in the beginning, there's the word, right? People have said that, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He's the Kung Fu guy. I want to say Jackie
Bruce
Chan, but it's
Lee.
not. Bruce Lee. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee said that we need to pay attention to our words because they cast spells. That's why we call it spelling, right? So our
Hmm.
words and what we say have frequencies that go out into the universe. And we are in, yes, a physical universe, but we are in a vibrational universe. Everything here has a vibration. We know now from modern science, from quantum physics, that everything is energy. You split open anything about us, and at the bottom line, it's energy. And so
Yeah.
we get to choose what energy we vibrate in. And so when we want to vibrate in joy, when we want to vibrate in abundance, we then attract that to us. I didn't share this part of the story, but when I was, into my career, I became a pharmaceutical sales rep, and I was making great money. I had pretty much freedom in my day, would work like a few hours a day, and be able to come back home and had life balance and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that was missing for me was passion and purpose. And
Mm.
I did this job, I made great money, but I didn't feel good about it. For
Yeah.
me, if I have a headache, I go and use peppermint oil, right? And I wasn't one to go run to pharmaceuticals to help me feel better. And here I was like pitching to doctors, oh, prescribe this drug. And it just felt
Yeah.
split for me. I felt
Hmm.
like incongruent, which never feels good. And I talk about having split energy in the flow factor as well in most of my books. So this place within me where I was in lack, I'm not feeling passion, and I certainly don't feel on purpose. I wanted to cultivate that. What would that look like and feel like? So that's what I started to meditate on. The frequency, just like we were just talking about, the frequency of passion and purpose is available to me now, not when or if or then. And so I started to, in my meditations, feeling, imagining, visualizing, affirming what passion and purpose felt like. And that's when my book came through me. And that's when then I started coaching. And I went on this other path. I was having a side gig, if you will, while I was still a pharmaceutical sales rep. And I kept building my clients, and I was building, speaking in churches and bookstores, and started speaking in colleges. And one day I then met my husband, my husband Frederick, who I've now been with for 19 years this month. Um, and I moved to Canada to be with him, quit my corporate job, and went full time in my business as a coach. And all because I cultivated passion and purpose that then transcended, and I attracted, this business that I have had now for almost 19 years.
Yeah. So, like what you're saying is depending on our thoughts, depending on our words, depending on our feelings, that's the vibration, that's the energy that we're putting out into the universe. And that's what we're going to attract back to us. You know,
Exactly.
negativity loves negativity. If you're someone who complains a lot and is always down, you're going to attract other people to you that feel that because misery loves company, right? And that's
Yes.
exactly right. And I think a lot of us don't realize, and I love how you said the words. The words are important because I hear a lot of people say your thoughts are important, your emotions are important, your actions are important. But I mean, my goodness, with the women that I coach, they are constantly saying, I look fat. I don't look good in my clothes. It's so hard to get in shape. It's so hard, I have failed and I keep trying and it doesn't work for me
And I
and
can't, right? I
and I
can't lose the
can't.
weight. I
Yes.
can't do
And
this.
and a
Yeah.
lot of that comes from your deep held beliefs, which it's really hard to change beliefs, I think. And a lot of people start there. A lot of coaches say, you've got to change like these limiting beliefs, these shadow beliefs. And that's true. But I like how you say, okay, start with what you speak because that's a lot more accessible. That's a
Well,
lot
that's
more
what it,
approachable.
yeah.
Changing your
Yeah.
beliefs is that's hard, because it's something a lot of times that you've been programmed in your subconscious since day one. It could be, from parents or experiences or whatever. So I love that your coaching, your training can be that seems so much simpler is to just listen to what you're saying and say something different.
Yes, I mean, it's the spark of everything. And so shifting beliefs doesn't have to be hard when you understand that all of consciousness, words, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions all work together. And the thing is that we have four bodies, right? We don't have just our mental body, we have our emotional body, we have our obviously physical body, and then our energy body. And when you are trying to change a belief, which is the part of the mental body, right? And you don't focus on the other bodies, it's like a tipping point. When your mental and your emotional body work together, it affects your physical body. So if you're being negative and you feel negative emotions, your body is going to reflect that, right? But if
Hmm.
you start to change the way you speak first, like what you say, and the thoughts that you think, your mental body then creates a connection with your emotional body and you start to feel different, which then your body feels different. And,
Hmm.
it's like that tipping point. You get more than two of them going in the same direction. Your energy body, mental body, emotional body, it affects your physical body and your physical reality. So that's why
Hmm.
it's really important to even just start with what you say, because what you say about yourself in the privacy of your own minds, that's really important. I remember back when Melanie told me that my, thoughts create my reality, and I started paying attention to my thoughts, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so negative. I couldn't believe it. I told my girlfriend Dawn, again, she's known me since seventh grade. I'm like, Dawn, I'm so negative. And she's like, what are you talking about? You are the most positive person. You're the most bubbly, upbeat person I know. And I was thinking to myself, well, then how can that be true? How can that be right? What comes out of my mouth to other people sounds positive and everything, but inside my own head, it's like I'm a prisoner in here, I'm constantly being berated and beating myself up,
Yes.
and so sometimes it's not what we say outside or it's how are we talking to ourselves,
Right.
how are we treating ourselves, because self-love is one of those most attractive qualities that we can have. And but
Hmm.
most people don't know how to have self-love,
Yeah.
how to connect with it.
So I want to ask you this because this is what always seems to trip me up. So I feel like if other women listening, maybe they struggle here too. I understand the law of attraction and I understand that the energy I'm putting out is the energy I'm going to get back. But that creates a fear in
Yes.
me. Like, oh my gosh, every time I have a negative thought, like every time I'm worried, every time I'm upset, every time I'm anxious, which is a lot, it happens. I'm human.
Right.
Then, oh no, oh my gosh, I'm putting out the negative energy. Now I'm going to get negative. And then that just keeps, that makes it
Yes.
worse because then I'm like, oh
Yes.
my God, I'm putting out negative, more negatives coming back. Oh no, negatives coming back. And then I get afraid
Yes.
and then that blocks me from being able to put the positive energy out
Well,
that
let's
I
let's talk.
want.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because this is real, and that's why I wrote the flow factor, because our minds, our brains naturally have a coping mechanism. We are at the bottom line of who we are as human beings. We're animals, right? And we have the same animalistic coping mechanism of fight, flight, freeze than a bunny rabbit in the desert. And
Hmm.
that part of our mind is there to keep us safe. And so here's one thing I want to say though. Positive thoughts have so much more creative intensification than a negative thought. And it's
Hmm.
wired that way. So we can think negative thoughts, and it takes a lot of negative thoughts and a lot of negative vibration to create something than if we shift a positive thought. So let yourself, okay, it takes like a lot more
Yeah.
negativity to actually attract something. Most of the time, the things that we worry and fret and fear about don't actually happen,
Right.
right? And when we shift those negative thoughts and when we shift those negative beliefs or perspectives to a positive one, now we are in so much more of an attraction phase, right?
Hmm.
However, if we stay stuck in the negativity and that's all we're vibrating in, then we will start to see physical evidence, physical manifestations, right?
Right.
But it's not a done deal. It's like we're not done creating. We never get it done. But
Yeah.
the thing I want to say is that the part of our brain that is in fight, flight, or freeze, that's a part that we can then let go of and choose a different option, which is flow. Flow of what? Flow of love, abundance, success, well being, whatever it is. So, that awareness that our minds are in fight mode. Now, it doesn't have to be like, boom, I'm going to hit you in the face like you'd think of a person fighting. Fighting fight mode is resistance, right? I'm afraid of this happening or not happening. So my
Right.
mind is now in fight mode. It's
Hmm.
resisting it, right?
Hmm.
That's
I'm afraid I'm going to
natural.
lose my job. I'm afraid I'm not going to find the love relationship that I want. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to lose the weight. I'm afraid I'm going to cycle back to my old way of
Yep.
doing
I'm
things.
worried about my kid. I'm worried about my weight. I'm worried about, all of that stuff. Breathe, because that's natural. It's wired into us. It's the human part of us. Every single person has doubts, worries, fears. It happens. It happens because it's a part of our protective mechanism for the dangers of the world, right?
Hmm.
It's our minds trying to help us in some way. We can have awareness of it and then shift back into flow in the
Yeah.
same way that we also have freeze. I hear this all the time. And for 25 years that I've been coaching people, I feel stuck. I feel blocked, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm overwhelmed. I don't have clarity. I don't know what my next step is. That's when our brains are in freeze mode, and it keeps us in freeze mode out of protection.
Yeah.
But you can get out of freeze mode and move into flow. That's what the Flow Factor book is all about, right? Go pre-order it. So the flowfactorbook.com or it's got a list of all the different places you could buy it. But that's freeze. And then we have flee. This is big. So we got fight, 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 flight, freeze. So the flight part of us, especially as women, we could be in a marriage and have one foot in the marriage and one foot out the door. Oh yeah, I was like that in my first marriage. I was like, if you look at me wrong, if you say something, I'm out of here. It was like I was in the constant of like one foot out the door, like oh you're gonna disrespect me? My foot's already out the door. Like I
Hmm.
was always in this flight mode in that relationship because it was like for me as a kid, and I talk about this in the flow factor too, our traumas, whether they're big T traumas or little t traumas, they inform us, they mold us, they shape us, they imprint us. And
Yeah.
when we're in that place, I would watch my mom and my dad argue, and I'd look at them as a kid and go, why doesn't she leave him? And then she'd be like, what am I going to do for money? I can't, what he's the, because that was the way
Yeah.
their relationship was back then.
Yeah.
She had no clue and she wasn't resourceful enough. And I'd be like, we could go live with grandma and grandpa. Like I had solutions to let's get out of this. And she's like, no. So she was in freeze mode where I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in
So,
flight. She's
and,
in
and
freeze.
right. And I made this vow, I think when I was like 7 years old. I'm like, I will never let a man I was like,
Hmm.
no way, I'm going to make my own money because
Hmm.
I'm going to be able to. So here I am in my first marriage and I'm like, I'm ready to go.
Right.
Moment's notice. I'm
Right.
I'm out of here, right? And the other part of that flight mode is I gotta run, I gotta go faster. And that's why as women, we take on like I gotta do this and I gotta do this. And it's like I can't sit still and be
Hmm.
with myself. I've even got to run away from myself. So
Hmm.
we do, we have vices and things that we think will make us feel better, whether it's, I talk about vice freedom and I have a whole program on that about whether it's I got to get off wine or I got to get off weed or I got to get off this or, sugar or coffee or whatever it is, because I'm doing so much of it. And that
Yeah.
was big for me is like, I got to keep escaping who I am. I got to keep running from myself.
Yeah.
These are all coping mechanisms and they're
Yeah.
hardwired into us. But
Yes.
when we know that and can accept that and not beat ourselves up for it, right? Then we can get into the flow of self-love. We get into
Right,
the
because
flow.
that's where we get stuck. That's where I get
Yes,
stuck. I kind of know where these old habits and thoughts come from past traumas, and but they're there. I can't help it. They're still there. And then I get scared. Oh no, I'm going to keep perpetuating that because that's the energy that I'm putting out. So I love what you said. Okay, it's going to take a lot of those to add up to one positive. A bunch of, negative feelings, energy, thoughts, whatever, aren't going to take up as much space as a few really good positive ones. So
absolutely.
I want to end with, where do you make that first shift to get into the flow? Like instead of getting stuck, instead of fighting, instead of fleeing, which is kind of where it trips us up. That feeling
Yeah.
comes up, we don't know what to do with it. Then we're stuck there. So
Yeah.
how do we shift?
Watch your
What's the
words.
first step to
Watch your
go into
words.
flow?
Changing and shifting your language shifts your entire life because it is when you hear yourself say something out loud or to
Hmm.
yourself, right? And you pay attention to how that word or that phrase makes you feel, you now have a choice. That's why I really recommend you go to watchyourwords.com because when you have this awareness of this one word or phrase or many that you say, it can shift. And I know we're short on time. I wish I'd give more examples, but I have seen massive transformations in my own life and in others' lives when we change just our words. And
That's
it's
amazing.
impactful. It is because words, think about what is a thought? There's a series of words, right? And
Yeah.
what is a belief? It's belief is a thought that we've had over and over and over again until we see evidence of it, and then we go, "Oh, it's true. It is true." And then it becomes concrete in our minds,
Yeah.
right? And all of that is fueled by our emotions and then the actions that we take, right? If we feel good, we're going to take different actions than if we feel bad.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
so all of that inner work, our words, our thoughts, our emotions, and our beliefs, those are what create our actions. And the actions are, how we create things in our reality. by taking physical action in this world to do something or to not do something, right? So start with your
Yes.
words.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate you breaking that down for us because I think that's going to help so many women listening. And I want to make sure that you do go check out it's the free 30-day video program that she has created for us. How to change your words. Your words create your reality, and it's the secret to manifesting. So you're going to manifest what you speak. And I want to appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm going to put the link below so that everybody listening can access that, and also how we can get all your amazing books. And Christy, I just want to thank you. It was so wonderful having you today. And I'm just so happy that you were able to be here with us.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you having me and the impact that you make in the world. So thank you for that. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you all again so much. We are so honored that you were here with us today, and I will see you soon.